Alright, we're gonna start off with something I find completely hilarious. How many women have a stereotypical gay friend? Like the movies say you're supposed to have. Most of the guys I know think that every woman has a gay friend. A gay male friend. Kind of like every white guy supposedly has a black friend, so he can't be racist. Right. So anyway, we're being pushed that women are for these liberal actions of transgender peoples and transgender sports. A transgender male turned female who hadn't had any sort of surgical alteration and still had male equipment wanted to go to a females only gym. What is the purpose of a females only gym? No dicks. Men are not allowed to have a men's only gym for our privacy, for our safety, because so many women will go to a place that is co-ed and do exactly what this Jessica lady did. Chloe Roma, I like a lot of the stuff that she does. I really do. A lot of the stuff that she does is very, or mostly pro-men. But I disagree with taking away the ability to video record. See, the reason that Jessica got fucking is because of the video recording. And it has helped to allow people more of a realization of, holy shit, we do need to fear women. We need to fear what the American people will do if a woman plays victim. And in that case, it very easily could have turned into, oh my god, he's staring at me, he's a pervert. Jesus fucking goddamn Christ. You get to see how woke we are when men are treated like perverts for looking at a camera that's obviously a camera. Or a man cannot read your name tag. How do you know my name? It's on your name tag. That's not a rocket science. I've known women who wear name tags and are weirded out, like, for example, at the Cheesecake Factory, more than one waitress had a name tag so that people knew who they were. Now, usually, name tags in a fancy place like that are not required or necessary. Why did they wear name tags? Well, because they thought they did a good job and they wanted people to know. But then, there's the comments of, everyone keeps staring at my tits. And why do all these guys know my name? Holy shit. What the fuck? Lucky me. Remain calm. I worked in the dish pit. So, of course, you got a name tag and you've got this idea in your head that every man just wants to stare at your boobs. Really, he's trying not to be rude. That's where you put your name tag. If you put your name tag on your forehead, they're going to read it off of your forehead. But then, of course, he's being a pervert because he made eye contact. Holy shit! If you make eye contact, you're trying to scare her. If you squint in the sunlight, you're trying to scare her. If you look her direction because she's doing something that's obviously dangerous, must mean you're trying to scare her. In reality, you don't tell her how dangerous the thing she's doing. You're going to let her hurt herself doing that. Why? Because if you say something, you know there's a possibility you might get snapped at. Kind of like if a woman drops something in a parking lot and she's a pretty blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl in a red dress. and she drops something. And from 30 feet away, what do you say to her? Excuse me, miss. Excuse me, ma'am. And before you get to tell her why you're trying to get her attention, you dropped your wallet, you dropped your purse. Or with that lady in Hood River, she dropped the pacifier. It happens. Now, here's the thing. Every man is held hostage in this country. We're afraid of being harmed over what a woman thinks. And the uglier we are and the broker we are, the more we have to be afraid. It's more acceptable socially for you to kill a man. Police show their bias because 96% of those that they kill are men. You get to see how using the term mentally ill was used to prevent me from turning in my predators. How they pretend that I'm mentally disabled, so mentally retarded that I don't know what an assault feels like. That I don't know what bullshit feels like. Here's what telling somebody they can't record does. It prevents them from being allowed to defend themselves. It makes it your word versus theirs, and allows you to do racist things. Now the only recordings that you can get will be from who? From the building itself, and is their audio recording. If a woman goes in there and starts calling one of the black workers the N-word, and they tell her she needs to leave because she's calling them the N-word, nobody's allowed to record. So then you got a black man, he's pointing to her and pointing towards the door. She says, "Oh my God, I was kicked out of a men's only gym. Oh my God, they should have had a sign on the door that said men's only gym. They should have said it was a men's only gym. Oh my God." And even if they get the cameras, just like the situation at the hospital in Boulder County, we finally did get the cameras from the hospital. We never got the body cameras. My public pretender never tried to get it. None of my public pretenders tried to get any evidence. None of the police attempted to collect any evidence. Even with the Scudders, you get to hear them. They speak with me on my YouTube channel. Without them going in with me, though, these cops get to pretend it didn't happen. There's also the fact that these people, well, like with Mr. Scudder, sorry, I didn't mean to say Scott Scudder, I meant Jason Scudder. With Jason Scudder, something happens just about every time to fuck it up. Hopefully we get something done before hunting season, or before he's got a full-time job again. One of the things that has protected me the most is the fact that I spoke up on Facebook and on YouTube and I showed the truth. I told the truth first, but nobody wanted to listen, and I didn't have the ability to show the truth. I didn't know how to take the screenshots that needed to be taken. Otherwise, I'd have just sent Natalie Bollinger recordings and screenshots of the threats and harassment, intimidation, and assaults. Now that I'm able to, you get to see how difficult it is to process all of the evidence without a place to do it. I was forced into homelessness because I was staying with people who are taking advantage of me and my finances and my disability money. And because they had a son who was autistic, they knew exactly what to do, how to antagonize the situation, and how to play victim. And all of you know how to play victim. We need to allow the recordings to happen. Those girls told on themselves how horrible they were towards men for no reason. You want to pretend like we have no right to be afraid of you. I have literally been to prison for trying to turn in sexual predators, people who take advantage of the disabled and the homeless and men. You get to see how much differently I was treated from Natalie Bollinger from day one. I was actually stalked. I did as I was asked. And my predators pretended that I stalked them for doing as they asked. They just omitted pieces of information. They led people to believe that I was some sort of a horrible monster. They gaslighted the shit out of me. And the cops didn't give a shit. My friends didn't give a shit. They were doing what it is that they do to men. Reinterpreting everything that we say and everything we type into it's our fault. Women especially do this to us. A man will tell us he understands, and then he'll explain why it doesn't work for a man. Why a man can't turn it in. And nearly every man explains this to me. Dude, you've got a dick. People don't care about you. They care about women and children. Well, I'm aware. I speak out about that on my YouTube channel. I also still try to help find missing women and missing children, not just missing men. However, it's more often, more frequent, and more common for stuff to come across my timeline about missing women because they're the ones that people will share. Those and old people. If I disappeared tomorrow, who would make a report? Nobody. Nobody would miss me. That's because being honest is not an American trait. It's an autistic trait. Apologizing all the time is also an autistic trait. It's also a trait of people who are survivors of long-term abuse, such as myself. I try real hard, not to say I'm sorry. Because many people take that as an admission of guilt. Because you said sorry about something. Because you wanted to end the fighting. You wanted to end the bickering. You wanted to end the violence. You wanted to end the crazy. And still, that's not good enough. Then that's, oh, see? See, he's admitting he's guilty. But then again, if I don't say I'm sorry, how do I get treated? You know. If I don't say I'm sorry, I get treated like I'm a heartless SOB because I didn't say I'm sorry. Because I didn't say sorry for something that's not my fault. Because I didn't say sorry for other people hurting me. Because I didn't say sorry when I merely threatened to do those things back, and only a few of them. Most of the things that these people said that they would do, I'm not capable of that. Rebecca Gross is. She's capable of saying those things to people. She's capable of saying that she'll cut up their dogs and cut up their cats and feed them to their children, or feed their children to their dogs, or skin their this in front of them, or skin their that in front of them. But Rebecca's a woman, and she can get away with that a lot easier. By taking cameras and people's ability to record away from them, you're making a safety issue whereby false narratives can be sold and used to harm people. Where it allows bias of who you want to believe. Who are you going to believe? A white girl or a black man? A black man in a co-ed gym who has a white woman who's screaming profanities at him and calling him the N-word? The gym only has its own cameras. No audio. Like the hospitals. No audio. They say it's for your safety and protection. No, your stuff is written down on pieces of paper. So if they can hear it on audio, yeah, those people are your security people. Those people would have access to security stuff. Let me tell you how this works in the jails and the prisons. You're told that you're supposed to talk to the guard as he goes by your cell, but when you Say something to the guard as he goes by your cell. He ignores you and just walks on. Next time, you get a little bit louder and he pretends he doesn't hear you. The next time, you're even louder and he stops and he gets in your face right at the cell window. Starts talking shit at you. Treating you like you're his little bitch. Thinks it's funny. Laughs at you because you're locked up. You explain that you're in there, that you haven't been convicted of a fucking crime. You shouldn't be in prison. And he tells you, oh, really? If you weren't convicted, you wouldn't be here. Well, guess what? I wasn't convicted. I wasn't even charged with a felony. These guys abused procedures, misled the public in order to make me a target to the public. Many of my predators are in prison now. Michelle Quinn beat the hell out of her girlfriend. I'm not allowed to say that because that makes the LGBT community look bad. Right? I'm not allowed to point out any crimes that are committed against white people because it's taking away from the black cause. I'm not allowed to talk about grown men raping me as a child because it takes away from the LGBT cause. No, it doesn't. Don't protect the fucking predators. Don't pretend that the predators that are black can't be predators just because they're black. Don't pretend that the predators who are white can't be predators because they're white. Don't pretend that the predators who are women cannot be predators just because they're women. Drug addicts are a double-edged coin. If you help out a drug addict and they fuck you over, it's your fault because you knew they were a drug addict. If you don't help them because they're a drug addict and you've been taken by too many drug addicts, had too many drug addicts in your own family, you know, if a drug addict will steal from their own family, they'll steal from anybody. So then you get the peer pressure of, oh, well, you know what? You need to stop being so judgmental. Judgmental? I'm speaking from experience. You're going to tell me about something that you saw on Nightline or CNN. And I'm going to tell you what I've fucking lived through. We need to have recordings allowed. The guards, they come by your cell. Like Donald. Boy, that guy was a fun one. There was also one who tried to slam my fingers shut in the door. He succeeded. There was also Officer Lauderdale at the Scottsbluff jail. Tried to break my fingers. Her boss came and tased me. Don't deny me my rights. I was denied the rights of an inmate because I was an inmate of another county and they had to get permission from my predators to do anything. And what are my predators going to do? They're going to say no. And then they're going to apportion more money for me to stay locked up. Like Scott DaCosta did. How many times are they allowed to do that before it comes to chronic harassment, threats, intimidation? The things that Dallas told me about his situation and his interactions with Scott DaCosta showed that Scott DaCosta was attempting to deprive me of the resources required to turn him in via the internet. To deprive me of the ability to download the recordings between him and I while it made a difference. Just like those officers in Rawlins did everything that they could to threaten, harass, and intimidate me, to harm me, to lie to me, and to intentionally attempt to destroy evidence. They can put child molesters and rapists behind bars. You're goddamn right I'm livid. How did they get away with that? Those officers in Rawlins, Wyoming ain't required to wear a body camera. They can do whatever the fuck they want. They want to do some redneck hillbilly bullshit before they lock you up. By God, they can do it. I was forced to plead guilty to a crime I didn't commit in order to get my computer of evidence back that showed that they committed felonies against me. Between that, the recorded phone calls, yeah, there's enough to convict still. Both Rawlins, Wyoming, and Sheriff Scott DaCosta and his deputies. Because they did so across state lines, and because Scott DaCosta assisted those people in getting away with committing felonies against me for his own personal gain, and because he and Paulie Olson and his deputies and his receptionist coordinated to get these people out of state, out of jurisdiction, or to mislead the situation, such as the situation with Jared Hahn, who got to be there to intimidate me on no less than 7 separate occasions after I tried to turn him in, and was illegally prevented from doing so, was lied to by the Nebraska State Patrol, by the Nebraska Attorney General's office. I was literally for 18 months sent on a wild goose chase because it was nobody's job. It wasn't until the day that I was assaulted by Scott DaCosta and State Trooper Lassen that Bill Burr, who was supposed to have collected evidence, had the recording and sent it in. All the way back in, 3rd or 4th of July of 2018 it would have been. It was about 6 months after Natalie died, a few months after my grandmother's funeral when Ted Bollinger and Alicia Bollinger were fucking with me. Graham wanted to sleep through the whole thing and then be the one to speak. When I had to go in to talk to Scott DaCosta later on to get the recording of that, I still didn't have the ability to record him. I would have liked to, but everything was full. That screen overlay was still fucking me too. Repeatedly, my phones were lost or stolen, mostly stolen. And then I'm treated like I'm a bad person. People tell me, oh, well, I tried calling you. Well, I gave you a new number. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you got a new number. Well, there's a reason I sent you my new number and type my new number. There were also phones that, because I was locked up for long enough, or couldn't pay the bill because I was locked up, that I lost the phone number, and all I had was the phone with all of the evidence in it. I had to buy a new phone and get a new phone number so that I wouldn't end up inadvertently destroying evidence on my old phone because I couldn't get the old number back. That's what happens when you have to get a pay-by-month phone. Some of us have to buy that cheap-ass Walmart shit. We have to. We don't have the money to buy a $200 pair of sneakers or an $800 phone. Especially when just when I finally got help, finally had money coming in, finally there was going to be disability money and my back payments coming in. And Ken and Leah ripped me out of the majority of the first back payment. I was going to try to use that so that I could buy the house that Dallas Richmond now lives in, at 41 Thompson Avenue, Chapel, Nebraska. Right across the street from Dennis and Brenda Dickinson, 44 Thompson Avenue, Chapel, Nebraska, 69129. Women trying to pull that shit, if they hadn't recorded it, they could have gotten away with it. Let me tell you about having just the gym camera there, but no sound. There's a woman, right? She lets a man in to the weight room or to the workout room in her local apartments. She knows the man. Obviously, he's not in there trying to do anything harsh or inhumane or evil or anything like that. Now he's asking her a question. He's got his palms up. He's being as submissive as he can, because we have to be. We have to be submissive so you don't freak out on us and pretend we're trying to rape you or beat you. So what does this woman do? Mind you, there's no sound. She starts playing victim. She starts hitting him. Through the entire encounter, he never once throws a punch. The only time he steps in on her is when she reaches for a weapon. Other than that, he backs off, and you can see him backing off. And they try to just condense it down to the little bits and pieces that they can use to try to paint him as a horrible, horrible person. I'm like, if that's the worst footage that you've got, Jesus fucking Christ, leave the poor man alone. Like when she started hitting him, his hands were still like this. If he was an aggressive person and planning on being aggressive, he'd have had a lot of adrenaline going through him. And his first reaction would have been to block or to attack. And at no point did he show any intention of that. For a time there, she blocked the door. He did try going for the door. Now it had him step away from the door. Mind you, this man's just been assaulted, all right? Multiple times, hit multiple times. This woman has repeatedly reached for weapons. He has kept his distance, and he only steps in when she reaches for a weapon, when she is going for things that could hurt him. Most of us women throw stuff at us when they're throwing a fucking tantrum. Like Harley Richmond. We don't need to ban that stuff. We need to have audio recordings so that we know it really happened. So that at-risk adults who are homeless, who are the most likely to people to be victimized because of exactly this. And I've been showing you for 6 years that the only thing that any of you actually respond to when a man is being abused, when he's homeless and disabled, the only thing that you will respond to is abuse. Why is it that you are triggered to respond and actually jump into action when somebody is abusive to you? Before that, most of the women that I interact with blow me off just like anyone else. Men are not important. Do not ask a woman for help, because she's not going to help you the way that she would help a woman. She's going to try pawning you off on someone else. That's what every single one of my friends wanted to do. Pawn me off onto somebody else. Pawn me off onto some numbers. Oh, I can get some numbers for you. Fuck you. If you don't call those numbers with me, I will be given the mentally ill treatment, which means they pretend everything I say is a lie and then hang up. As soon as I find out I'm homeless, they hang up. As soon as they find out that I'm trying to turn in cops, they hang up. Or they bullshit me and lie to me and tell me it's not their job. So only my predators get to speak, and they want to send me to rubber stamps or create situations where I will be abused until I am inevitably going to have a fucking meltdown from abuse. And then they can pretend I'm an asshole. Pretend I'm a horrible monster when I react to long-term abuse. But I'm not allowed to, am I? A woman pretends to be a victim and men's lives are destroyed. That is victimization. When a man is actually being harmed and his family is actually having their lives threatened over wrong things that you did. Leslie Snell, Scott DaCosta. I don't give a fuck if you're Jesus H. goddamn motherfucking Christ. You do not get to threaten my sister or my fucking niece and have me say nothing. As far as being angry that I recorded. How does it fucking feel, you pieces of shit? People aren't targeting you. People are targeting me. And you want me to be harmed because people might harm you. Well, be honest. Tell the truth. Don't leave a homie hanging. Don't pretend you care if you don't. Everything that a disabled person would need to get off the streets comes in our monthly disability packages and that $2,500 that they give you every so often until your back payments are paid up. That's starting when you became disabled until when they gave you disability. When did they prorate it? Back to when I was in Virginia, when I hurt my back. But I didn't hurt my back in Virginia, did I? I just hurt it worse because I had to work. We don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. If we're not physically capable of lifting 35 pounds, you will treat us like shit, like we're lazy, like we just don't want to work. Most of the logs I tossed with the Jepsons were heavier than 35 pounds. If they're real big and heavy, thank goodness trees are mostly round. You can roll them. Being able to record the situations is the only thing that has been my saving grace. But what has deprived me of the ability to show it is a safe environment where I'm not stuck in public, being treated like I'm a bad person because I have to record in public. I don't have a private place to do this. There is no private place for a homeless victim to go do this, especially when they have been made a target. We can't go to the police when we're assaulted. They don't care. We can't go to the police when we're stalked. They don't care. When a landowner decides to victimize us, they don't fucking care. Cops don't give a holy goddamn about the homeless, and neither do you. Especially if we're men. You blame homeless men for every rape, for every fire started, for every death that you can't solve. It must have been a homeless person. You pretend like every homeless person who is hitchhiking is going to kill you. Then again, you've got between 35 and 85 times more homeless people, hitchhikers, killed than people with, yeah, that's right, with cars. The people who pick us up have a way to dispose of our body. And of course, well, that homeless person doesn't have a car for you to steal from them. So nobody's going to call in your car as stolen. You're the one driving it. You haven't called it in as stolen. When you want to get rid of their body, you've got a vehicle to do it with. Like that old man in the red stepside 1940s Chevy, I believe. When my Chevy Cavalier broke down on the Little Bighorn River, there was a man who gave me a ride. And he wanted me to touch myself for him to give me a ride to Hardin. He took me to Hardin to the parts store. Sorry, he dropped me off in Hardin. A Native American man and his son bought me the tools to go change the thermostat on my car because it was overheating. I went and changed the thermostat, put the fluid in. This Native American fella and his son bought the tools for me so I could do it. And I changed the thermostat. I didn't make it very far before the starter, which was stuck engaged, broke off, and it broke off a large chunk of my engine. Oil went everywhere, and that was the end of that car. A lot of people, they demand evidence. They demand that I show them the recordings. At the very beginning, I didn't have the ability, and everyone made me go in to talk to these people alone. And then I'm told it takes an act of God to get those recordings. You get to see how easily the body cam footage with Samuel Leon Lawrence IV come out. And Zaid Atkinson as well. You also get to see how mine were hidden. How when I went in and had to go in alone, they didn't care if they broke the law. I had to make two choices. Either I can try to show them the evidence on my phone, and when I try to, they arrest me because I'm not recording. Whatever bogus charges they can put on me. And if I am recording, then I can't show them the evidence because I have to use my phone to record. And I have to do it live in case they try to do something crazy or something illegal or immoral. I didn't even know that my electronics were taken by the cops. I thought Dallas had them. The recordings in the jail between me and Dallas. I only had a minute to talk to him. He didn't have time to tell me that he didn't have my electronics, that the cops had stolen it illegally and immorally. Scott DaCosta had been able to convince a judge through lies and slander, as well as omitting evidence, as always. These officers always omit the fact that I was trying to turn in the Bollingers and trying to turn in bad officers, and I was forced to do desperate things because cops would not record it. And even if they did, they were making it impossible to get that evidence to show that I was victimized by the police for trying to turn in my crimes. My crimes, not ones that I committed, but ones committed by others. When I finally had to break the law, it was necessary. Enough lives had been lost that I could give a fuck less if I spend the rest of my life in fucking prison. Goddamn pigs and the rest of the American public need to be stopped by whatever means necessary. You are murdering us wholesale and telling us we deserve it. Women have no right to complain by comparison. Men have no right to complain by comparison. Christians, Muslims, Jewish people have no right to complain by comparison. Nobody has the right to tell a homeless and disabled male that he has to go to the back of the bus because he is number one on every one of your lists of abuse. Number one victim on all of them. Oh, with the exception of sexual offenses. But even of those, we have a very, very high likelihood of being sexually assaulted as adults and not being able to turn it in. A man is supposed to shut up and take it. It disinherits him, disenfranchises him, and demasculates him if he admits that he has been a victim of sexual assault. People never look at him the same. They never treat him the same. Men are more likely to commit suicide because nobody cares. We're expected to take the abuse. We're expected to sacrifice ourselves. Sacrifice ourselves for what? Good people? No, we have taught women and men to be evil to men. That if a woman does something wrong to a man, it's a man's fault. Everything is always a man's fault. And you're going to take it out on whoever the hell is lower than you on the totem pole, because you know nobody's going to care. You'll find somebody who's uglier than you, broker than you, has a more busted up car than you, or lives in a fucking tent. You get to see how the police send us to mental health sends us to the police. They both do the same thing. They talk over us and sell their own narrative and try to overanalyze it and convince us that we're wrong. No, I'm not mentally retarded. When somebody punches me, I know I've been punched. Because of how impossible these assholes are when they want to play retarded. And your public pretenders aren't even willing to try to get the cameras from those facilities. Zero effort to show any of what actually happened and allow it to be their word versus mine. This code. At-risk adults should be able to make a report to the police without fear of victimization or being blown off, without fear of mandated reporters not doing their jobs as mandated reporters. We should not have to force a friend or family to go in with us, or pay enormous amounts of money to our friends and family to pretend to give a shit. Our disability money, which is not enough to live on anywhere in America, should not be used for a disabled, homeless male to jump through legal hoops over false charges, or told that he has to hire a civil lawyer, when that money is not enough to fucking live on, and now he is being forced to go to court date after court date over false charges, all over the inability to record. Fuck you, I will record anywhere I fucking go. It is too easy to victimize me, make it your word versus mine, and I have no place to safely go through that evidence in peace and fucking quiet. I have no place to make private phone calls in peace and fucking quiet, and in fucking private. And then you play victim when you're recorded and put it up on my channel. Did you ever stop to realize what that does to me? To my life and for my life? That my friends looked the other way for the last 6 years rather than speak up about what they knew. It's not my fault that they're cowards. The poor people in this country deserve what they get because they don't stand together. Is it no wonder that the poorest in our country are the working class? It is unfair to use arrest records and conviction rates based on one person's word versus another, especially when body camera evidence was prevented from being shown, because it does show bias. It shows that the police did harm me, knowingly, willingly, and intentionally, and that they repeatedly lied in order to have me harmed. You want to harm me for having suicidal ideations? How about you do something about the abuse, you piece of shit? How about you do something about the threats, or the assaults, or the vandalism against me? Instead of forcing me to do such things, to show you that it's fucking wrong. To show you that, see, my predators work together. If I do something, they work together. If they do those things to me hundreds and hundreds of times, you guys won't do shit, because men don't matter. Men need to record And they need to stay the hell away from women. It has become too dangerous to be born with a penis in this country. It's bad enough that we have our genitalia mutilated after we are born, right after we are born, to satisfy a woman's pleasure later in life. I did not ask to have my genitalia mutilated. I was not old enough to give consent to have my genitalia mutilated. Do not tell me about my body, my choice, when this is still being done to little boys across the country. Infant children. My body, and it wasn't my choice. Just like it wasn't my choice for Nicole Gerald to stab me in the butthole with Carrot fucking Zilla. You don't think it makes me feel uncomfortable to have to go to Scott DaCosta, to turn in Scott DaCosta? You don't think it makes me uncomfortable to be forced to try to turn things in to Leslie Snell because she works for Scott DaCosta as a receptionist? You don't think that makes me uncomfortable after getting out of prison, having to go to those people again to try to turn in crimes? You see what happens if I try to turn in crimes. I'm treated like a criminal and ultimately forced to commit the same acts, or rather, verbalizations of the same acts, in order to force a court date that I won't even be allowed to go to. I used to be good to everybody. I used to try to live by the first golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. I also learned the second golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. And that is only partially true. When people start starving, they don't give a fuck about your gold. They care about your food. A horse, a horse. My kingdom for a horse. How many of you even know where that quote came from? When death is imminent, people become very afraid. A great and noble king, ordained by the Almighty, willing to give up his entire kingdom for a horse. Then again, he knew that whoever gave him a horse would be horseless, and therefore slaughtered quickly. The reason that these women were busted playing victim is because they recorded themselves playing victim. I'm an asshole, and I admit it. When people want to pretend like I'm a bad person or throw me away like I'm trash, that's fine. But if you were a part of the situation, you were a part of the situation. And whether you want to admit it or not, the truth goes up. If you want to pull the I'm a female, oh poor me, I have PTSD, well so do I, bitch. That don't confront me none. You had a choice between doing the right thing or being loyal to the drugs and the drama and the bullshit. The things that I had to go through, I needed a professional to help me to turn in evidence. I didn't need a bunch of fucking drama hounds who were threatening to kill each other and pretending to be my friend. Like Cara Rogers, a.k.a. Cara Mia, or Aaron Cockerham, or Layla Johnson, aka Missy Johnson, aka Missy Doonan. None of my friends cared that these web wingnuts were the only ones that were actually offering to help. Because my friends, when they would offer, it was always, well, an extended leave. Like, sure, they'll turn it in, but it's open-ended. They'll do it when they eventually get around to it. But chasing pussy and doing drugs and getting drunk is what's important for the last 6 years. No, I am not okay with any place that is public or is accessed by the public being a place that you cannot record. I can understand in the showers. However, I believe that even in the showers, because of the Boy Scout fiasco, that even in the showers, audio recording should be allowed. The problem here is that police officers nationwide, hospitals nationwide, treat people with bad insurance, government insurance, or just straight homeless people like they're junkies out for a free handout, and should be punished for even daring to think they could go to a hospital. How dare they? When a disabled person is being abused, we're blown off by the cops. That's why we're supposed to go to mental health. They're supposed to help us to prepare and to turn it in. It is their job as a mandated reporter. APS is supposed to send out an investigator and an officer, and they're supposed to meet you together. Before shit like this happens, because now all of the officers that I have to look forward to, if somebody comes from another station down here with APS, because APS here is not up to the task. None of the people here in Tillamook, none of them, are going to take my word over the hospitals, my word over the police officers, or my word over the racist asshole and sexist asshole that claims that he owns the Fred Meyers. That's why I need help turning in the recordings, which they are happy to ignore and pretend don't exist. Because nobody ever helps me turn them in, but my predators will turn anything in that they think they can use to be the good guys, or at least make it out as if what they did was not predatory. As if they didn't threaten my life, or threaten to kill me, or threaten to kill my friends or family. As if they didn't vandalize my things. I don't know how far along in the Candace recording that it actually started recording. It might have recorded that old man threatening to kill me right before she started beating on my window. It was originally just titled Candace. Kandace, although she spells it Kandyce. See, the secret here is to get help turning it in before there's an issue with the cops. But because you're a homeless male, there is inevitably going to be an issue with the cops. And inevitably, as a disabled homeless male who is small, I am going to be one of the first ones targeted, especially since I'm new to the area and do not have a long established friendship with many of these people. Your sexism is showing. You're not showing your Jesus, Christians. You're showing that you're judgmental people. You'll protect those who pretend to believe in your imaginary spaceman. And you will harm people who don't believe in your imaginary spaceman, which is the reason that most of us don't believe in your imaginary spaceman anymore. You showed us you're full of shit. Those of you who are actually good Christians, I wish I'd known you in my lifetime. I wish I could have met you. The thing is, recording is for all of our safety. It doesn't make us unsafe to record. It makes us unsafe not to be recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, and this is what I've been told by officer after officer, If you don't want to be recorded, then do this stuff in your own home. Except I don't have a home, do I? You believe that you are owed the illusion of privacy. But you notice, I have to give out my phone number and my social security number in public to make these calls and be able to record them. If I don't record them, these animals get to pretend that I never called, never tried. If I'm not allowed or capable of recording it live, or I'm sent somewhere where I can't record, that always gives these people the advantage because they can make it their word versus mine, and they want to believe the officers. Officers get the benefit of the doubt, and if you are too poor to jump through their hoops, pay for all of their petty false charges, and pay for a lawyer, and pay for the evidence, and pay for the body cams, and pay for every goddamn thing else, they can just keep on harming you, forcing you into the public, and telling the news that you're some sort of an animal. Waylon Lolatai assaulted me, but they pretended like I assaulted them so they could paint me as a violent animal. And then they did everything that they could to prevent body camera evidence from being shown in court. But it wasn't just them, it was also public pretenders. And it was also my so-called friends who never tried speaking with my public pretenders or telling what they knew. And then they want to play victim when I post it up on the internet. No, you don't get to play victim. I'm actually being victimized, you pieces of shit. How do we end these videos? Good to be rid of you. Thank you for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper and your sister's, and no victim left behind. Another restricted number. How often do I get these? Sometimes these people pretend to be professionals. Sometimes they pretend to be doctors or lawyers or police officers. I can't tell if it's a cop or not. Most of the time it's somebody talking in a falsetto voice or doing deep breathing or accusing me of shit that never happened. I shouldn't have to do this in public. Nobody should have to. You're all fucking cowards.